Okay, so in order to help you master this kanji, we're going to be going through a ton of different example sentences from many different video games. We're also going to have a look at the most useful words that you need to know in order to master this kanji, as well as both a radical and a component breakdown for this kanji, so that by the end of this video, you are going to feel very confident with knowing exactly how this kanji is used. So starting off with the first kunyomi reading we have here for te, like seen in the word te, tegami, and tetsudai.
お前のためなんだ。
やめなさい。もうやめて。
てめえ何してんだ。邪魔するんじゃねえ命令だ。わかったかい。
いいえ。その子に手を出さないで。
なんだと？
うまく敵の隙をついて攻撃すれば相手の体勢を崩せます。それでは私を相手に試してくだされ。
結局また届けられなかったな。これでいいのか？
いいんです。あんな手紙見せられたら自分の手紙なんて渡せませんから。あ、
お前ら。手伝え。
Okay, so we can see there's quite a few words used with this te reading. In fact, this kanji is so varied that it should almost be an N5 kanji, really. This is used in 72 of the top 10,000 most useful words, this reading, te. So I've covered the most essential, most easiest, most common words, but there's still plenty of other really good words here. So these four that we have here, te for hand, pretty straightforward. Aite for an opponent or the other party, a little bit not so clear. Tegami for a letter, and then tetsudal to help someone or to give someone a hand. Now we have a little bit more of a rarer reading here for just ta, and this is used in the word heta.
画期的な軍事技術の開発者がこんなに可愛い女の子とは思わなかったもんでね。
スネークったらお世辞は下手ね。
お世辞じゃない。これからの18時間退屈せずに済みそうだ。
何それ?
And so, as we just saw in Metal Gear Solid, heta for being poor at something. This means you're not very good at doing something, like Snake not being very good at flattery. So this reading ta is only used in 3 words in the top 10,000 words, and in fact this is the only word in the JLPT. So this is a pretty straightforward one. If you remember this reading, you'll be pretty good just for this one word. And you can actually see that this is the opposite of another word we're going to have later on in this video. Jozu. Okay, so the next reading we have for this kanji is de, like seen here in hade. And so just like we saw there in Persona 5 Strikers, hade is used when something's very showy, loud, flashy, like the entrance here that Joker had, right? It's very over the top, spins around in the circles, that type of thing. Very, very show-offy, and here is hade. This reading is also relatively rare, and it's only used in a couple words in the top 10,000. And this word, hade, is the only word that uses this reading in the JLPT. Okay, so now moving on to the onyomi readings, and we have here shu. Now this is a very common reading used in 21 different words in the top 10k, like seen here with kashu, senshu, and shujutsu.
あたいが昔歌ってた歌だよ。
え？ロージーが歌っていたって、あなた歌手だったの？
歌手なんてそんな大げさなもんじゃないよ。小さな酒場のステージで歌ってただけさ。
果たしてチャンピオンであるミスターサタンの数値を超える選手が現れるのか。期待してまいりましょう。それでは天下一武道会予選を開始いたします。
形成手術はまだ体力的に無理です。
いや、彼が覚醒したことが漏れてしまった。急がないと。患者が危険だ。オペの準備をしてくれ。オペの準備をするんだ。だが私は違う。他人のビーチにもつながっている。バイパス手術をした心臓のようなものだ。 この変形した心臓がそれを可能にしてくれているのかもしれん。
So these are the three most useful words using this reading. We have kashu for a singer, senshu for a sports player, like an athlete, and then we have shujutsu for a surgical operation. As I said before, there are 21 different words that use this reading in the top 10k, so there are other words that you'll need to pick up along the way, but just know that the main onyomi reading for this kanji is shu. Okay, and now moving on to the final onyomi reading here with zu. And this is only used in this one word, jozu.
ねえ、あなた変よ。だってサイモンって普通は名前じゃなくて名字でしょ？ポール・サイモンっていうくらいなんだから。
そんな、私の大事なファーストネーム信じてくださいよ。
名字は？
ライヒ。
ドイツ系？
そう、生まれも育ちもオーストラリアだけどね。
ライヒならいとこの結婚式で食べたよ。
おー、サイムの名前食べられない。
それにしてもあなた、日本語上手ね。
うん、優秀な先生がいるからね。
Okay, so as we just saw in Boku no Natsuyasumi 2, here we have zu in the word jozu. And this is a very famous meme type word, nihongo ga jozu, right? Your Japanese is very good. Here, jozu is used to say that you're good at something, and that's the opposite of heta. So if we have a look at the concept here for this kanji, it is a little bit more challenging. There is the straightforward one that we can see here in the kunyomi for te. That's pretty straightforward, but the rest are a little bit trickier. So aite here is for one's partner. So the first kanji in aite is kind of like together and te is hand. So it's kind of like hand together, you know, your partner, but this can both be in a friendly way or also in a kind of, you know, opponent type way. Then we have tegami, te again for hand, kami here is for paper, so hand paper, a letter, and then finally tetsudao here is to lend a hand, to give someone help. Te by itself is hand, and then stao is to kind of go along with something, so go along with the hand, help assist. It's not so straightforward how it's connected. The next kunyomi ta here is heta, for not being good at something. The first kanji is for down, and the second kanji is for your te. You can kind of think of your hand as like your skill, down in skill, down in your technical ability, right? The next word, hade, is really difficult to kind of get a concept from because ha is actually like a political faction and te your hand. So I don't really see a connection here. Maybe you do, but I personally can't see one. But this word by itself is really the only word that uses the de reading that you're going to need to know straight away. So hade, just remember this by itself as being for kind of showy, flashy type thing. Now looking at the onyomi reading for shu. So here again, we can see kashu for a singer. This, if you think about the first kanji meaning to sing, and here with the te, you know how I said that it's kind of like a skill? Well, you can also kind of think of it like a worker, right? Doing a certain action. Here, doing the singing, right? A person who works singing is a singer, kashu. Then you have senshu. This is the same kind of thing. Sen is to be selected. People who work, who are selected, kind of like, you know, sports players. You're the chosen few who can play in the team. And then we have shujutsu, which here is a surgical operation, like a surgery. And you can kind of see the second kanji is meaning like a technique, right? The kind of special advanced ability. And then finally, the onyomi reading here of zu, seen in the one word, jozu. And this is the opposite of heta. And so you can kind of think of this as being up in skill, to be good at something, just like Simon here being told that his nihongo is jozu. So the concept here has one really straightforward concept, your hand, te, that's the most common concept that we have for this kanji, but you can also kind of look at it like a skill, right? So you may see it used in these ways as well. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to do with the literal hand, sometimes it's a little bit more abstract. All right, so now looking at the most useful words here in the top 10,000 word list, I've chosen these 10 here according to the ranking lists on kanshudo.com. And we can see that this kanji here is incredibly useful. So let's have a look at the first part in the 500 most useful words. We have a huge group of words here. In the N5 range, we have te, tegami, and jozu. So these three words are definitely words that every learner should learn at the beginning level of their Japanese study. hand, letter, and being good at something. Then moving to the N3 level, which is still just as useful, but it's just a little bit higher in the JLPT, we have aite for your opponent or a partner, and then kashu for a singer. Now moving on to the 1500 most useful words, in the N5 level we have heta for being bad at something. At the N4 level we have Dahl to give a hand to help someone, and then at the N3 level we have both shujutsu and senshu for a surgery and a sports player. Then finally, at the 3000 most useful words at the N2 level, we have hade for being very loud and flashy. And as I said earlier in this video, this kanji is incredibly useful. This kanji is seen in 99 words in the top 10,000 word list. So you're definitely going to come across more words using these readings, but as long as you remember these readings and have a general feel for how they're used, you should be okay. So now going into the radical breakdown for this kanji. This is a very simple kanji, so it doesn't actually have a kind of radical breakdown like some more advanced kanji do. It doesn't actually have any individual radicals inside of it. But in order to help you remember it, I have a kind of mnemonic here that it actually kind of looks like a hand. If you have a look at it, kind of an upside down hand, it looks like there's 5 fingers. See, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and then 1 in the middle that's kind of like the middle finger that's a little bit bent. So you can kind of think that it's like an upside down hand with a bent middle finger. I personally just see it as a hand. It's not too difficult a kanji to remember. It does kind of look like a hand, not exactly, but it's enough for you to make that connection quite quickly. Where this kanji gets a little bit more trickier is how it's used as a component in other kanji. So this kanji, exactly as you can see being used as a component, is actually relatively rare, and it's only used in some of these kanji that you can see on the side, which are actually sometimes not even used by themselves. So we have here geki and utsu to beat, that's relatively common. Ageru to give, this actually isn't as common to be used, sometimes this kanji isn't even used. We have ma here seen in the word chafing, sho for the palm of the hand, and then finally ken or kobushi for a fist. You might learn that bottom one if you play some fighting games, for example. Now, even just now looking at its component, you can see that there is a connection with hand and these kanji. To beat, you generally beat someone with your hand. We have to give, you generally give someone something with your hand. The palm of your hand and a fist is obviously connected to hand. Chafing perhaps not so clear. But what's really interesting with this kanji is that it actually has its own radical form, like seen here. And you can see that it looks almost exactly the same as the kanji form, just a little bit different. This is now much more commonly used as a radical in kanji. Some of these kanji here are N5 level, so we can see that we have motsu to hold, yubi for a finger or sasu to point, utsu to strike, this is a much more commonly used kanji, nageru to throw, and even nuku to pull out or extract. Again, all of these actions are something you can see being done with a hand, holding, fingers, pointing, striking, throwing, pulling out. So we can see this connection here with te, the hand, being used as a radical. And congratulations, you have now mastered the kanji for hand, te. Now, as you can see, this kanji is a little bit more complicated than the previous one. You can definitely see the connection with hand in a lot of its uses with different kanji, as well as the words that it's involved in. But then sometimes it does get a little bit more abstract when it has to do with things like skill, ability, and even a worker who does something, right? It does get a little bit less straightforward. But hopefully this video has helped you feel more confident with this kanji. It's a pretty straightforward one that you're definitely going to have a lot of practice seeing. But I think it's definitely worthwhile having a look at both the kanji itself and its radical form, because it is actually used in the same way, and you're going to start to see this kanji everywhere. So thank you very much guys for watching, and as always, a huge thank you to all of the supporters on Patreon for supporting the channel. If you'd like to help support the channel or join us on the Game Gengo Discord community, then consider joining us on Patreon. So another kanji mastered. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you again in the next video. See ya.